Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Metaverse Roadshow created by Metaverse Summit. So today we are very, very happy to have another amazing Metaverse entrepreneur, Ana. Nice meeting you here, Ana.
Hi, everyone. Glad to hear every one of you here too. So I'm Anastasiia Gliebova, perfectly good with calling me Ana. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Art and IP lawyer by background. So I would be very happy to share with you my story, vision, and overall perspective on where are we moving as a community too.
Amazing. Yeah, Ana, could you tell us more about, how did you enter into Web3 and then how did you become a founder? I remember we met actually in a VC dinner in Lisbon, right? So is it currently where you are located? And then what's the story? What brought you to Lisbon?
Yeah, so right now I'm located in Lisbon, Portugal, and I feel like it's one of the liveliest places now to be if you're a tech entrepreneur, and especially in the Web3 sphere. I cannot say, I cannot measure exactly the moment, the second when I have entered the Web3 sphere. It's like a bit big, how it all kind of came up to this point. Overall, I have a legal and economic background and 7 years of experience as both a creative manager and like legal advisor to the projects. So I have started out in actually the other company, which was co-founded by my business partner, also female founder, Olga Simpson, who is a doctor of law. So we kind of bear this responsibility of being the legal co-founders at Art, which is very heavy on the shoulders too. So I have been working with projects on the intersection of art, fashion, games, and of course, technology, including blockchain and immersive tech like 3D, virtual spaces, AR and VR. And like after a couple of years, we have spotted with Olga that one of the main issues is the lack of infrastructure on the market. And by infrastructure, I mean the one which will help you to manage and monetize your IP. So to understand what kind of intellectual property rights you have, which one you can sell, and how your content is actually being used and represented globally and online. As it was back in 2019, it was a bit too early to say that there was like this huge wave of Web3 of NFT adoption. It was mostly called like a blockchain, and blockchain was this magic word for everyone to try out and get interested in. So we have started out with basically making a plan on like how we want to move as a team, who we need together. We have been creating virtual spaces for quite some time and gathering the audience, the community around exactly by doing virtual exhibitions and helping museums, galleries, and also single artists and creators to get digitalized and clearly understanding like how the legal side of it is being happening. Plus, we have been also helping collectors and then also the NFT collectors to know what kind of rights they have. So what is it that you are actually buying? That's how I can say that I have entered the Web3 sphere, starting from the blockchain as overall a technology to store and also to record what set of rights was given together with a pieces of digital creativity. And yeah, basically we have switched from being a platform for digital art to overall a blockchain protocol. And now I consider myself as, fully Web3ized or something like this.
That's amazing. Actually, bringing in different expertise is very important to the space, right? We are in the actually phase of going to mass market. And for mass market adoption, we need a lot of use cases. I guess your company, Art, is also bringing in different knowledges around the legal, around IP. So could you share with our audience some of your knowledge around this sector? IP is so important for the general metaverse scene, right? Whether it's linked with NFT collections, or linked with, in-game assets. So what is the current state of art of the link of real life IP law and NFT, blockchain-based ownership? Is there any use cases already in different regions? Another part is potentially, could you share your knowledge about for NFT collections, such as Moonbird, such as Bored Apes? They are figuring out whether they are using CC0, which is a new standard that is kind of like an open source around IP. I'm not an expert here. Could you share your opinion around that part?
Of course. So, what I'm a bit worried about usually is that people perceive legal or intellectual property law as, some scary, boring words, while at the same time, for me, I'm saying it not only because I'm a lawyer, I'm kind of this non-orthodox lawyer because I'm a blockchain entrepreneur, but at the same time, legal is always a way to open up more opportunities and to bring and provide more choices to the community. And intellectual property law, what's very important to understand as the main basic here, it's very unified. It's the most harmonized sphere of law globally. So starting from the 70s of the 20th century, not like a lot of has changed in terms of how we perceive the intangibility of the assets, that something digital can be just as valuable as, Picasso's artwork in the physical world. And not only from the side of the prices, but overall in the perception of people. And it went like the long way, starting from electronic books and digital music. And now we also the more kind of classical and traditionalized spheres like art, fashion, and luxury also on board in this wave of Web3 and wave of digital creativity. So the key basic here is that ownership and intellectual property rights are different things. You might own an object, but have no intellectual property rights for it. My favorite example here would be a book. If you buy a physical book, you might, give it away, tear it apart, resell it, donate it. You can do whatever you want with the physical representations of the book, with its cover, with the pages. But at the same time, when you just buy a book, you do not get any rights to publish the content, to kind of recreate the content, or to use it to create some of your derivative pieces, to turn this book into a movie or something like this. So that's very important to understand that the representation of the objects and intellectual property to it might belong to different people, because only the author or the publishing house, in case of the book, will have the intellectual property rights. And starting from 1976, long time ago, 50 years, almost not so much has actually changed, that if you want to provide any intellectual property rights, like, let's say, a right to create digital exhibition, a right to print the digital art which you have bought on the t-shirt. Sorry for this kind of type of example, which is non-digital, but to recreate and maybe use the music which you have bought as a soundtrack to the game, you need to transfer the intellectual property rights. Basically, the author, the creator, or the person who owns the rights has to give you a very clear permission on a particular set of rights, particular usage, particular region, and particular period. This is what is called licensing. So licensing, it's not about like getting a license to work with crypto like the companies have to obtain. Like, it's also licensing, but that's a governmental one. But when it comes to creative content, the one which has author, creator, and the buyer and user, respectively, if you want to have certain types of use, you need to get this license from an author, a clear written permission. And starting from 1976, this permissions, US Copyright Act, this permission has to be written. You cannot just agree on words. You cannot discuss it over the phone, etc. You have to have any form of written consent in that case. And one of the main issues which arise here with NFTs is basically that what is the object of the deal? Is it a token itself, just like it is in terms and conditions on multiple NFT marketplaces and platforms? Or is it the file which is inside the token, the one which is like now, like the overall standardized version is IPFS. Like in 2021, it was even like the Google Drive or some other sorts of storing the information as well. The main point here is that you need to be super clear, crystal clear with what you can or cannot do with the file which you are buying in the NFT. And the current standards are that basically in the terms and conditions, what you buy is the token itself, and the token consists of different parts, not only the file. It's like also a set of information which you have inside. Sometimes you also have even the digital certification stored inside the token. That's how we also do it at VR, that you have basically the file and certificate to it tied into one token. So that will be more convenient for you, even maybe to go to the court if you will need one day. And the point is that right now, inside the token, people do not have this information. Some artists might include it into the description that like, hey, I'm a fan of Creative Commons. I'm giving you any kinds of usage around it, or like vice versa. I do not permit any kind of use except for personal one. Let's say put it on Twitter as your avatar, as your icon, something like this. So that might work, but for a license to be full, like you also need to know the period and region and the particular set of rights which are being given. And just by default, NFTs were created to forward the ownership. So the ownership, just like you would have with this physical book in the example I was given before, and intellectual property rights were just not set in mind when people were kind of creating the first standards and creating the first NFTs. That is how the gap was being created. And that's why I feel it's so important to have diverse teams with various perspectives, because once a lawyer, always a lawyer. No matter what you do further, you just have a bit of more thoughts sometimes on what might be the other use cases to happen in the future. Like maybe people would like to use my content in virtual reality. Do I permit converting this file to the format needed for it to be used in augmented reality, in virtual reality, etc.? So that's basically how these gaps were emerging, and that's our goal now, our goal as a community, to understand that we have to fill in these gaps and not be afraid of basically exploring and trying out different options, different sets of rights, which we can give with the digital pieces we sell or buy. And that if you are an NFT buyer or NFT collector, you have all the rights to have the clear and understanding and transparency around what you can or cannot do with the object.
That's amazing. You are also using like normal language, not a very lawyer type of language to help us understand. Thank you for also the metaphor. So it's very understandable. What do you think about the question around the NFT collections decision?
Mm-hmm.
Do you suggest them, or do you think they actually should actually apply the CC0, or they should actually have ownership of their intellectual property in a legal way?
Since I'm talking now to potentially to the audience of also different people, of also developers, I would ask, would you as a developer, let's say you are writing the code, would you like to have all of your code only open source on MIT license or maybe Apache or something like this? I feel that if we kind of perceive only one way, that kind of everything should be open source, everything should be free to use, we're closing up a lot of opportunities of not only monetization, but the actual usage. We close this variety of options available for creators and for brands as well, because I would say we are also closing. If we say that only CC0 is something which should be everywhere on NFT, we are kind of closing the door for Web2 brands. The ones who have been building up their reputation, intellectual property, and basically, good example here will be Disney. Disney was going to the court almost every time, their copyright was infringed. Like the Disney characters were used used for other movies, or for creating the merchandise or so, or even used in, in some replicas, etc. The concept of intellectual property is very important for our modern world. And you might not feel like that's so important. There is a whole wave called copyleft. These are people who completely say that there should be no copyright and every creative piece should be available for public to use the way it's needed or the way they want, just like we would have been doing, for instance, with Mona Lisa. Everybody can create any piece of content based on Mona Lisa, because the term after the death of Leonardo da Vinci is passed long away. And I feel that if we say that CC0 is the only way, so everything should be open source, we simply do not enable new creators to not only monetize, but to be respected for their work. And I feel that if CC0 will become, let's make this type of world where everything is CC0, it means that people who are putting their time and putting their effort should not be kind of remunerated for the future use of the assets as well. And I feel that that's maybe not unfair, and I just feel that it should have been a choice of the author itself, themselves, or maybe of the brand, whether they want or do not want to provide CC0 to their pieces. So as always, that's actually the main driver why we have launched VArt and why we have created VArt protocol, covered a bit later. It's exactly to provide this choice to the audience and to the community. Thus, I'm like very strictly at the side of that CC0 is a great opportunity. And I'm happy for every creator who would choose it to provide more options of various usage around the pieces. But at the same time, I respect and want to support the creators who want to have different options, like provide you with a particular sale, let's say, of creative rights, of commercial usage, of non-commercial usage, or maybe even like fully non-commercial usage for museums, for charity, for other kind of digital exhibitions, maybe doing virtual shows, etc. So everybody should try and do what they feel is right for their creativity. And I don't think that anybody should kind of be dictating that there is only one way, that open source for code or Creative Commons for creative pieces is the only way how the thing should be.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned it should be a choice of the creator, right? But we are seeing a lot of NFT collections. Once they launched, they are under the governments of a DAO, right? So the DAO will potentially vote on the decision of if they want to go for CC0 or not. Within your knowledge, if we have a case of a NFT collection that actually go for CC0, but potentially some part of the NFT owners do not support this initiative, and afterwards they can actually have some lawsuit to fight for their specific NFT. Do you have some cases in real life that is happening? Do you think it can be a future case? What do you think could be the solution?
I would say that one of the main problems here is that, like, it's a very boring one, I'm sorry, is that nobody is reading the terms and conditions when they kind of want to publish, when they want to upload their creative asset to become an NFT. Because on like major platforms and on multiple of them, by just uploading your content, so tokenizing it, creating an NFT, you provide this, like there are a lot of this legal words like irrevocable, unlimited, global license for usage of the content. Basically, what you do is you provide the platform or the DAO, like whatever is the structure in that case, you provide them with the rights to choose for you. And there is nothing bad about it. Like, that's completely normal. If you will go to the gallery or work with an art dealer or work with a music label, or I don't know, provide your content for the platform which provides, let's say, this kind of subscription model, like just it's used for digital photos, let's say. But you have to know that you are providing them with a right to choose what will be happening next. So if you are aware of it and you're totally fine with it, it was your decision. Basically, you put a click, you put a tick that by using this platform, you agree with the terms and conditions. So just like, take 5 more minutes, maybe to just like, go at least by the diagonal and see what set of intellectual property, it's always called intellectual property or something exists, the part of the terms and conditions, what is exactly what you are given, what kind of choice you are given to the platform or you are given to the DAO or whoever else is in this entity to decide what will happen next. And if you have decided, like if you gave, all the rights to decide on the conditions, on the sale, and you kind of agree with the policy of the DAO, the policy of the platform and NFT marketplace, it was your choice. So I'm sorry, so like you will not be, probably you will not be super successful in pursuing the lawsuit in the future because you have initially agreed that you want to have this model, the one which they have been presenting, or the ones that they might be presenting in the future. And your like full consent is sometimes not needed if you gave away the representation rights that this DAO, let's say, will decide for you what set of policies will come in force. You might be not very successful in kind of changing this opportunity. Even though as a community, I have not heard of too many cases of people not resolving the questions arising in in a non-court way, so just between themselves. I would say that what's also important to note here is that you as a creator, if you do not want Creative Commons to be ever applicable, you can state it very clearly in the description to your NFT, or of course, I will cover again what we offer from our side to kind of have this variety of choices. But overall, just be very careful on what you agree to, what you agree for. And maybe if you want to have this kind of additional choices, you might also be using multiple platforms to explore different opportunities. Yes, and also be aware that if you have any questions, you can always contact like the support team, so just talk to people directly. And I'm sure that like the Web3 community for me has never been about forcing anyone to do what they don't want to do. So probably if you do not agree with any new policies, you might always inform them about it.
Definitely. So talking about creators and also the decentralized governance around NFT collections, we are also thinking about in the, let's say, traditional creative industry, IP are always linked with royalties in music, in all kinds of or formats of content creation. In nowadays, do you think there is a shift in terms of business model? Do you think the royalty business model can expire very soon? And what do you think is the future of business model in terms of IP?
Mm-hmm. So that's actually a very good question, because I feel that by default, the royalty, it's not just like, commission from the secondary sale. And right now it's perceived like this. It's like some percentage which I can put myself, and it will like come from the next, from the secondary sales to me. But the key point here is that royalty can be assigned only to creators. So if you are, let's say, an owner, a representative like gallery, like, I don't know, a dealer, somebody else, a music brand, you are not a subject of royalties. And royalties and commissions are also being taxated differently in different countries. What I have to say was changed by like drastically by NFT market overall, and like very, very like you could trace back in time, was actually started by Whale Shark and Super Rare, that there's creator royalties, like the resale royalty was put at the 10% line instead of 5%. And I'm sure many of you would be like very surprised to find out that in European Union, for instance, there is a scale on what percentage is, or like how high the royalty should be based on the price of the initial asset. So the maximum royalty which you might get, it cannot exceed 12.5%. So if you put a royalty of 40%, 80%, it's something which can only happen in the NFT sphere. It's something completely non-existent even in the classic like royalty models. Like usually the highest ones, which are like by default in many countries, it's between 3 and 5%. So if you have a royalty, if you put your royalty yourself higher than 5%, just be aware that it's something which would not happen to you if you were to sign, I don't know, like physical contracts for a physical piece of art, let's say somewhere, I don't know, in Germany. Yes, so that's a huge difference how we as a digitalized and Web3 community, how we perceive this as a model of like basically, as you have exactly said, a model of business. So I would say that one of the key changes which were happening here is it was when OpenSea has changed the term of royalties to this creator's fee. And it's kind of a bit more ambiguous because the fee can be also a commission. And I feel that right now we might not like, we might not feel like this, but basically the brands and the Web2 companies are limited in the access to the Web3 and to the NFT sphere, exactly because on every platform you have to be a creator. Like the platforms are being tailored for single artists, for musicians, for for fashion designers, for game designers, for like artists, etc. They are not tailored specifically for businesses, the ones who are not a subject to royalties, ones we should be getting the commission for representation of a particular artist. And I feel like this understanding that royalty, it's something for creators, and you can call it like secondary sales commission, you can call it creator's fee, something else. But overall, whatever is not in line with, royalty going directly to creator should be named differently. And also when the regulation will come fully for the taxation purposes, it will be highly important how exactly you called and you named every set of income you got from selling or reselling or like getting the percentage from the secondary sales of your asset. So I feel that in the future, I'm, to be honest, not a fan of platforms canceling the royalty at all. I feel like we should not have the option of completely, and even from the legal standpoint, if an artist is selling a piece and they are not entitled to royalties, and you would go to the court might find this agreement void because it's not beneficial for a creator. And intellectual property law, it's like created to be beneficial for creators. It's protecting the creators from, the various situations that might happen with their pieces of art, pieces of music, let's say, etc. And I feel that providing the royalties, it's important, but it's also highly important to educate and to provide very clear and transparent information on what is royalty, what is the commission, what is other sets of fees, because maybe a part of your fees go to curator of the collection. Maybe a part of it goes to an art dealer, somebody else, or maybe you have a co-author, like you have co-created this piece and you also want to split it. So providing this transparency and understanding to everybody in the sphere is highly important. And unfortunately, I feel that we do not cover enough this kind of basic explanations of what is royalty, how it's working, etc.
Thank you for the knowledge. I didn't know, I didn't read the terms of service of OpenSea, I guess, so I don't know what exactly it's called, royalty regarding OpenSea, this specific platform. But when we are talking about Metaverse, we're also talking about how to build a open and decentralized Metaverse, right? So potentially for me, from my understanding, we are talking about connecting creators and the fans, potential buyers, collectors, the fans, the community directly. So how do you think we can do that regarding, the IP creators? Meaning that we have this more or less centralized platforms such as OpenSea. We are also talking about the fees that the creator fee, as you mentioned, as a royalty for the creators. But with more and more creators crowding into Web3, potentially we're also seeing this long tail effect, meaning that less and less consumer buyers, collectioners will be for each creator. So how do you think regarding creators and IP, we can build a healthy scaling ecosystem for a open and decentralized future of Metaverse?
Doing something like this was exactly like it's my personal mission, and like I always state that my personal mission is to give people more choice and help people to live their digital lives with what they love. So I feel that what will help here is not connected even so much like to the environment. It's connected to technology. So I feel that one of the key solutions here would be to provide something which I call like this. That's how I call our VR protocol, basically this global unifying bridge for creative content, where it's one click to buy, fully understanding all the rights around, understanding like what you get, what you cannot do. And also it's one click to integrate, to use, because one of the key points which right now stop us from mass adoptions, like I have already mentioned that it's unclearness about the rights, what you can or cannot do. It's also a lot of limits for actual Web2 like brands entering the sphere. Let's say we have single artists like natural persons, and we have corporates like entities, and it's not always like something so big like I have mentioned Disney, for instance. It might be like a small fashion brand which wants to create a digital fashion collection, but they cannot do it obviously because they do not have resources, expertise. They do not have so much time and effort to put into it. And the main part of it, if they will sell just one dress and not a collection, that might be exactly like even not a business model for them to consider. So what I feel is super important here is to connect this mechanism of licensing, basically selling only parts of rights to your assets separately on a temporary basis, provide your audience, your users, your NFT collectors with a very easy way to actually use. Let's say for digital fashion, it's to wear on metaverses, put it as a filter on Instagram, like or TikTok, something so easy. For digital art, it would be also the rights to create virtual exhibitions, to also provide the spaces to digital museums for permanent exhibitions, also to create derivative pieces if it's something out of interest, or maybe also for music, it's doing soundtracks for games, also integrating it to other spheres. And I felt that exactly this bridge and this connection to metaverses, AR, VR solutions, social media, and games, it's something which is lacking now in the sphere. So just like 3 years ago, when we have been just starting out with the idea stage, people were asking like, but what am I going to do with it? And this question is still not solved. We now have the full, primary market, and also the secondary market is now in development, but we do not have a clear answer on how to actually use and integrate and interact with the assets which you have. It's connected not only to the legal side, but also to the technical side. My favorite case here would be that a couple of months ago in European Union, it was also decided that right now every kind of new device should have this C-type charger. So we cannot use, like, even iPhones have to change the type of charger to have this unified type of connections, that it will be just easier for you as a buyer and as a user to charge your laptop, charge your phone, charge your iPad, etc. But at the same time, we do not have these resolutions for formats of the files. A good example here would be Unity and Unreal Engine. For everyone who works around 3D, you might feel the pain of basically converting one type of file to another one. Same for music, same for art. Of course, if it's a JPEG, it's not such a pain in the respective parts of your body about this part. But if you interact with VR packages, with augmented reality, or with 3D models, so like something which creates this immersive experience around, that's exactly the second expertise in our team, in addition to IP law and blockchain, exactly that, what to do next. And what's important from the legal side here is that if you have bought a JPEG, and you do not have clear rights to convert this file, to integrate it, to use it, let's say, as to create an augmented reality based on it, you will not have this link. It's like buying an apartment which was 100 square meters, but you come and see that it's 50 square meters. It's like legally different apartments because the main parts of the deal are not the same. Same here. So if you have bought an asset and you did not have the rights to convert it, you cannot basically use it on majority of platforms. And I feel that this is exactly the main point, that it's not yet one click to buy, one click to use, which is stopping us from the mass adoptions and not also helping us to connect bigger market players to, let's say, bigger market players with bigger communities. Great example here will be games. Of course, like the games adoption of NFT is not the highest one. And if we will take like even big companies like Ubisoft, like CD Projekt Red, they do not offer a variety of digital assets to be bought or sold, exactly because first part, IP, no idea what they will be given away, and like they have to still, do the movies, or maybe do the other games based on it. So it's important for them to have the clearness about it. It's like exactly also the adoption part, that right now you cannot buy one game asset as an NFT and use it in another game. You cannot buy one avatar and use it anywhere, like on all the platforms. Like, of course, right now it's evolving that on different metaverses or in different VR solutions, you can use different assets, but it's building up. So cross-platform and one click to buy, one click to use, it's something which is not allowing us, and which should happen next for the mass adoption, and exactly to close this gap of more creators coming, but buyers are not coming with the same pace. Plus, I feel that the media is a bit too kind of blame here, because people love to read the negative headlines that, oh, the metaverse market, it's crumbling. A good example here would be that European Commission has recently launched the metaverse, their own metaverse, exactly to present what they are doing, etc. And all the headlines were that 5 people came there, or like about the Meta's metaverse, or everybody there were only like the Meta's co-workers. And even though it might be true, if we will have only this kind of headlines, and it's true that like journalists, they prefer to have something which will attract more attention, that's completely normal. But if we will focus only on the negative side, we will not attract more new people to the sphere. So by breaking down the usage, one click to buy, one click to use, the ways how you can actually interact and integrate your asset for the next steps, and as well providing this transparency and not focusing on the negativity, but rather on the future prospects, on the potential, we will also enable more mass adoption. And by mass adoption, I mean it like in the best way possible, because without the mass adoption, there is no market, and without a market, there is no future. So I feel it as a next very important steps, and like I made it my personal mission as well, and as well as like our whole team at BArt, to make it happen faster, that it will be so clear, transparent, and easy to use.
Yeah, thank you, Anna, for the insights around the metaverse, but also your personal mission and value in the space. So talking about you, maybe we can come back a little bit about your story. You mentioned that your journey through the blockchain space and the Web3 and the metaverse space. Now we have more and more evolution on the new words. Could you also share your personal experiences around, as a co-founder of a startup? What's your feeling, especially now we are in December 2022, after the crypto crash a little bit due to FTX? What's your feeling as a entrepreneur, and what's your journey?
Yeah, so for me, maybe the main part here is that I consider myself as, a person who is in the sphere of exactly the like immersive experiences, metaverse, Web3, and creative digital assets. I do not consider myself as being like too much of a crypto person, because for me, it's like two sides of the coin. Crypto is, of course, a philosophy, but at the same time, it's the currency in majority, and blockchain is not always about crypto. And just like crypto is not always about creative assets, and that's like completely normal. It's like one big way of digitalizing the way we interact with digital content and digital creativity. And I feel like, of course, right now one cannot live with another, but we still have to differentiate that if we speak about digital assets like digital art, digital fashion, game assets, and luxury assets, we speak of something which has its own value. So it's something which will always have value, just like, I don't know, the antique pieces or luxury pieces or art or famous fashion collections will have a value in the physical world. It's kind of the logic behind it is the same. That if we will take away the crypto from it, we will still have the important assets, but we will not have like the currency which like we work with it right now. So for me, it's mostly my focus is on creative digital assets and on the way to enable this clearness, transparency, and a lot of choice for people on how to use them, how to interact with them. And we have started BArt from some like very raw idea stage in 2019. Me and Olga Simpson, my co-founder, we have been understanding at that moment that we have to choose one sphere to start, and it was digital art. And like this breakdown between 2019 and 2020, it was a period where a lot of digital asset marketplaces were closing. I have to say that Super Rare was also like was among the first ones who were like standing their grounds and continuing and keeping up, and I admire them a lot for it, because many others have been closing because they felt that there is no adoption, it's too early. And we have been accepted to the American Business Incubator. And that's also what we have heard, from people from a classic finance, real estate, or from like, hardware or IT businesses overall, that, or like even SaaS models that, oh, yes, it's like a growing market, but when is it going to be? In 5 years, in 10 years? Is that our future? Yeah, but it's not now. And I can feel them, because at that moment, it was just 75,000 of VR headsets around. Right now, it's over 200 million. So we might feel the difference even in numbers of adoption. But at that moment, we had to start with something easier for people to understand. And we have been conducting like very in-depth, over 220 in-depth interviews with also art representatives all over the world, over 50 countries. And that's why we have been doing what we knew what to do, virtual exhibitions. And even as of right now, we still have it as an additional utility now to the VR protocol. It's called VR immersion. So we provide virtual spaces, augmented reality and virtual reality to your assets. Again, on the white label basis, it's a connection, but that's where we have started. And that's how we gathered our first audience. Right now, we have a bit more than 45,000 users on all the platforms which we have, like, web, mobile, and VR app available on Oculus Store. And at that moment, we understood that we have to also expand. And we have started out with creating the platform for digital art with an NFT marketplace, already having in mind that we will be going for protocol. For me, the term protocol, it's like not defined anywhere super clearly what the protocol entails. But for me, calling our solutions a VR protocol, it means that we have this kind of unified sets of technologies and standards inside, which are applicable to the community, which are applicable to, let's say, the network built up by this technology. So we have been working on the VR protocol for over a year in the team, because if you want to do something which is infrastructure and focused on creative tech and luxury brands, creators, and projects, it's important to take so much into the account. Plus, I'm Ukrainian, just like our team is, and obviously, starting from February this year, we have been going through a lot, which I will never wish to any kind of startupper or entrepreneur to go through. It was very hard. We have even. Oh, I'm sorry, I feel like I got disconnected for a moment.
Yeah, no worries. Please, if you can take the last phrase. Yeah, maybe the team.
So I was saying that. Yes, I was saying that I believe that tough times make tough people, and of course, about Ukrainians, it's a bit on a harsher side. But if we speak about the Web3 and crypto community, we will also emerge stronger and more united after this kind of crypto winter will pass, and only exactly the projects which provide value will stay. So it's kind of a very normal process from the economics standpoint. And one of our investors and advisors, Adrian Slivotsky, was exactly this business visioneer with a lot of experience behind. That's exactly what he had told me, that there were times when people were living from default and global crisis to bankruptcy in a couple months, and that's something which happened to business all the time. So we live in the times which are hard for the industry, but at the same time not killing it, because how can you stop a digitalization? You cannot. So same as about Web3 at all. It's already the world we live in, not something about the future, because it's exactly where we are right now in the adoption of digital content, in the usage of it, and just transferring all of our necessary functions of the life to the digital format as well. So we have been working on the VR protocol for the last year. Overall, we have combined 5 stacks of technologies into it, not only the blockchain, but also the legal model for exactly issuing different sets of licenses for your existing NFTs or for the ones which you will create, exactly to the assets inside them. So what you buy is actually file and clear rights to it, not only the token where you do not have any information and you just have to, read the constantly updating terms and conditions. It's all tailored into one, tied in one token. Plus also the certification model and the model of conversion, so that in the next year we will have something which is one click to buy, one click to integrate for smaller files, and in the coming years as well for these big integrations to metaverses, games, AR, VR solutions, and social media, which I have previously mentioned. I feel is very important for the industry now to make as easy as possible. And of course, parts which enables mass adoption for the protocol as well, which is SDK, API, and admin panel. So how you can basically try out the VR protocol right now, and that's important, it's free to connect. So as a creator or as a brand, as a company, as a project, you do not have any additional extra costs for connecting the protocol, trying out on how to do the licenses part. We just take a small commission from your buyer when you sell the license in tokens. It's very important. So we have been trying to be as creators and as brands friendly as possible in that case. So what you can do through VR protocol is basically you have a turnkey solution. If you have never been doing any NFTs, any digital assets, then you have a whole marketplace from the scratch. Or you can add it up as a utility. And we are currently also in touch with 2 out of top 10 biggest NFT marketplaces to provide this utility as well for in the coming year for millions and millions of users as well. And the key points that on top of your main asset of your original NFT, which you had, or the ones which you have created already through the protocol, you might issue the licensing tokens. These are secondary NFTs, so you can hold your main asset, your art, your fashion, your game piece, and just be selling temporarily the rights to it for creative, commercial, or demonstrative use. So how it looks at in just 3 clicks, you select something like commercial use in United States for 1 year for VR, creative use globally for 2 months on TikTok, or something like this. Thus, you can not only choose and kind of decide how your piece of creativity will be represented in the Web3 world, but also to kind of track it through the licensing certificates inside, which have the expiration date. So if the person starts to use the asset which they have bought for, let's say, 2 months afterwards, you have a very clear proof that the sides of the agreement were kind of infringed. And if you want, you can go to the court, or you can just contact a person and say like, hey, if you want, you can prolong the license, or like you do not have the rights to use it anymore. And that's how we want to provide this clearness and transparency for both sides, both the creator and the buyer, on what to do. Our goal is to become exactly this kind of unifying bridge as a technology which will kind of coexist in multiple creative tech and luxury brands, companies, and collections, and kind of connect them through this one click to buy, one click to integrate solution. And for people, it will be like as easy as a pie to wear what they want to wear from the digital fashion, or if you are a company buying the rights for, let's say, commercial use for music to be a soundtrack in your game or in your movie, instead of 3 to 6 months to sign all the papers, it will be just one click to buy a token for you in that case, and you already have all inside. So we hope and we believe that it will speed up so many processes that the general adoption and actually the convenience for creators and for buyers will be that easy that even people who are like, oh, I don't want to try, it's hard, I have to understand the crypto, will not be scared of it because it's very user-friendly, first of all.
So we are in a very, very early stage of Metaverse, right? Looking at the IP scene in Roblox, we see the kids, they are creating these new spaces, new games, using maybe some images here, some images there. So especially in the very beginning, it wasn't even an issue, right? So we are seeing kind of a Wild West in a lot of different metaverses also in the space. But we are moving on very, very fast. So it's definitely one of the topics that the industry must take consideration. And thank you, Ana, for the insights around, your knowledge of IP and also your knowledge around the entrepreneur life. Happy to have you here today, Ana. So let's keep in touch, and all the best also for the development and mass adoption of VR. Congrats also on the achievement, and looking forward to having you next time.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if anybody has some additional questions or want to find out a bit more about the IP side of it, as you might have understood, I'm a talkative person, so you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or on other social media, like maybe Facebook or Instagram. I would be more than happy to send you some links or jump on the call to explain a bit more in details.
Thank you, Ana. And thank you all for listening and watching our Metaverse Summit Roadshow this time. And see you for the next episode.